Now, I consider myself someone who's learned a lot about the Middle East and religions over the years, so when I heard about the brutal repression of the Yazidis, I had a few questions. First of all, who are these Yazidis? The idea of a non-Abrahamic religion with roots all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia was, to say the least, intriguing. I had to find out more. The first I heard of them was when the UN declared ISIS was committing genocide against this religion due to their belief the Yazidis worship the devil. I knew there was a story here of a people who had experienced so much pain and suffering because of ignorance. Quickly, I found out about peacock angels, fire worship, and strict bans on marrying outside the faith. I could already sense this was a syncretic religion. We talked about syncretism before on Step Back, long ago when I spoke about voodoo. It's when religions develop as a mix of various traditions. Now, every religion is to some extent syncretic, but the Yazidis did seem like a unique combination. To the internet! Yazidis are under the umbrella of an ethnic group in the Middle East called the Kurdish people. There's some debate on this, but they live in the region of Kurdistan, which straddles Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, and they speak a form of the Kurdish language. However, their genetic lineage seems to connect this group all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia. Seriously old Fertile Crescent stuff. The name Yazidi comes from the old Umayyad Caliph Yazid I. The Umayyads were a powerful line of rulers at the beginning of the Islamic Empire. One of the significant figures in Yazidi history traces his origins to this house. The Yazidi religion is a blended mix of all sorts of Abrahamic and non-Abrahamic faiths. That being said, they're distinctly not an Abrahamic religion, or at least they haven't been treated as such by their neighbors. There's a lot of Islamic influence in their language, especially their more esoteric thinking, which seem to borrow heavily from Sufi thought, a movement of Islamic mysticism. However, that is where the similarities end. Their myths about the foundations of the universe seem to have more links with the religious beliefs of ancient Mesopotamia and Iran, as well as Zoroastrianism. They seem to have borrowed the Zoroastrian reverence for fire. But if you're lost as to what Zoroastrianism is, then you're in luck. I made a video exploring them, which you can watch here. So really, it's a locally focused religion endemic to a specific group of people. You can't convert. You must be born into it. That group of people have then absorbed religious ideas and traditions from the various religions which moved through the region of northern Iraq they originate from since, well, as long as people have been farming. The roots of this region are preposterously old, perhaps some of the oldest on Earth. It's a hierarchical religion, led both by a secular prince or emir and a religious sheikh authority. They also follow a strict caste system. Yazidis are not only strictly forbidden from marrying outside their religion, but even their caste under penalty of death. This comes from the Yazidi obsession with purity. They have internalized a bit of Zoroastrianism about the elements of fire, water, air, and earth, and have strong taboos about mixing elements. Actions like spitting on the ground or into a fire are considered very off limits. They've also considered even association with non-Yazidis a form of pollution. So, until relatively recently, they didn't join the military. It comes from a part of their creation myth, in which they believe the world is populated by descendants of Adam and Eve, but that the Yazidis were made only of the reproductive fluids of Adam. And also, because of an outdated conception of using human waste as fertilizer, they can't eat lettuce. Or at least, pious ones can't. This is all a fascinating find, but it sounds as if these are people who more or less keep to themselves. It doesn't explain why they've experienced so much targeted hatred over the years, and especially from the Islamic State. Then I began to look into their beliefs and found out what was going on. Like Christians, Muslims, and even Zoroastrians, the Yazidis are monotheists, believing in a distant god who had delegated the tasks of godding up to a pantheon of 7 angels. The most prominent among these angels is, this name. He also goes by the cool nickname of the Peacock Angel. It comes from an ancient belief that peacock meat doesn't decompose. Taus-e-Malek in the mythology of the Yazidis at a point defied the creator god, but later attained redemption. He's not a source of evil to them, and is even one of the holiest of holy figures in their faith. But one of the other names they used for him is Shaitan. which is the name in the Quran for the devil. It's because of this similar name the Yazidis have spent centuries accused of being devil worshippers. That's right. Because of a similar name, these people have experienced, by their own accounts, 73 genocides. Damn, that's fucked up. The Yazidis experienced multiple attempts to persecute and force convert them. They used to have a prominent place in Syria until the Ottoman Empire led several campaigns to try and force the Yazidis to convert to Islam, driving them into northern Iraq, where the vast majority of them live today. And every so often, some sort of event would flare up and cause violent mobs to attack Yazidi communities, such as in 2007 when a Yazidi honor killing sparked violence. The Muslim public suspected that the Yazidis killed this person because of their conversion to Islam. This sparked a series of suicide bombings against the Yazidi communities in Mosul, killing about 500. There are only about 700,000 Yazidis in the world. That doesn't come close to the untold horrors inflicted upon them by ISIS. Under their occupation, thousands of Yazidis have either died or been forced into sex slavery, to the point that the UN has declared it a genocide. Many thousands, even today, after ISIS has been defeated in the region, are internally displaced or living all over the world as refugees. And they have been the targets of Islamophobic hatred anywhere they go in the West. Because Islam isn't a race, but Islamophobia sure seems racist. This is doubly compounded by the fact that because of these long-standing misunderstandings, often Yazidi refugees need to be given special protection. And because of their cloistered culture, much more resources and training once they arrive. It's been a humanitarian disaster, and only when some of the worst people in history tried to eliminate them from the face of the earth did ignorant old me ever hear about them. Just thinking about the deep roots of the Yazidi people makes me really appreciate the gravity of what the chain of dominoes set off by the US invasion of Iraq in 2003 led to. Here are people who have ties all the way back to the time of Ur, Nineveh, and Babylon disappearing from the earth and finding themselves without help. The Yazidis are also part of the larger issue of the greater injustice done to the Kurdish people. They've been persecuted, displaced, and torn apart because of a bunch of old men in 1919 who drew this part of the map. We really need to find a way to build a space for the Kurdish people. The misunderstanding of the Peacock Angels shows that ignorance can be deadly. Curiosity and education can have a real impact on how we all get along. You probably sometimes hear that when people go off to go get an education, they come back all lefty and stuff. Maybe it's because reading about other people and trying to understand those different from yourself changes you in a way. I would say for the better, and to make my case, I would point to the tragedy of the Yazidis. Anytime we're all convinced that a group of people are evil, think of the Yazidis. And as the Green Brothers would say, see people complexly. Thank you to 12 Tone for the theme song, as well as the patronage of Donna Carey Johnson, Michael Kirshner, Martin King, Scott Smith, Luis Inez Corita, Mary D'Onofrio, Jason Neeson, Garrett Kwan. Like, share, subscribe, and come back next time for more Step Back.